Hello, friend, and welcome to this quiet corner of the night. Tonight, we're stepping together into the frozen heart of a true story from 1959, the Dyatlov Pass incident. 9 young hikers, full of life and unbreakable friendship, set out into the Ural Mountains and never returned. What unfolded on that remote slope remains one of the most haunting, yet strangely beautiful mysteries of the 20th century. But this is not a tale of fear. It's a meditation on courage, the bonds that hold us together, and the way nature can whisper secrets we may never fully understand. Settle back. Let the day's weight fall away. Close your eyes if it feels right. Breathe slowly, and let the snow carry us in. In the winter of 1959, 9 remarkable young people left the gray factories and lecture halls of Sverdlovsk for the wild northern Urals. Their names still echo like verses in an unfinished poem. Igor Dyatlov, the thoughtful 23-year-old leader whose quiet confidence held the group steady. Zinaida Kolmogorova, 22, radiant and quick with laughter that could warm the coldest tent. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko, both in their early 20s, inseparable friends whose jokes and folk songs turned every trail into a celebration. Rustam Slobodin, 23, the gentle one who always noticed when someone needed an extra pair of socks. Lyudmila Dubinina, 20, fierce and bright-eyed with a spirit as vast as the sky above them. Alexander Kolovatov, 24, who carried books in his pack so the nights would never feel empty. Nikolai Thibault Brignol, 23, the engineer whose hands could mend anything and whose smile never wavered. And Semyon Zolotaryov, 38, the seasoned guide whose stories of distant trails gave the younger ones a sense of lineage and wonder. They were students and experienced winter trekkers earning their highest hiking qualification. One friend, Yuri Yudin, turned back early with a painful knee. He would be the only one to see home again. The other 9 pressed on, skis carving clean lines through deep powder, their laughter rising into the frozen air. The journey unfolded in quiet beauty. They traveled by rattling train. A bus carried them deeper, past frozen rivers and ancient cedar forests that smelled of resin and eternity. They stayed in a tiny guest house, watched an old film, mailed letters home that simply said, "All is well." Day after day, they skied through a world of white silence. Campfires crackled under starlit skies. They kept small diaries, brief, honest notes about the cold pressing against their cheeks, the way the trees stood like silent guardians, and how good it felt to be alive together. On their final evening before the summit attempt, they even produced a little handwritten newspaper called Evening Otorten, filled with inside jokes and sketches. Their last group photos show them smiling, arms linked, the endless white horizon behind them like an open page. On February 1st, they made camp on the eastern slope of Kholat Syakhl, the Mountain of the Dead, as the local Mansi people called it. Igor noted simply, "All is well." They pitched their large canvas tent high on the open ridge. No firewood needed for this cold overnight. Inside, lantern light glowed soft and golden. They passed around chocolate, pulled wool blankets close, and drifted toward sleep with dreams of the summit waiting just beyond the next ridge. Outside, the temperature plunged toward 40 below. The wind moved across the slope in long, ancient sighs. Then, sometime in the deep heart of that night, something shifted. We will never know the precise moment. Perhaps it was a low rumble beneath the snow, the mountain itself stirring in its sleep. Perhaps a sudden katabatic wind roared down the slope like an invisible tide. Or maybe it was something subtler, infrasound, that silent pressure the wind can create against a ridge, the kind that quickens the pulse and makes the mind reach for explanations. Whatever it was, It was not malice. It was simply the raw, indifferent power of a wilderness older than any of us. The group woke in a shared instant of primal urgency. In the pitch dark, they seized knives and slashed their way out of the tent from the inside, not in panic against some monster, but with the calm efficiency of friends who had trained together for exactly this kind of moment. They spilled barefoot or in socks into the snow, wearing only their long underwear and sweaters. They left everything behind: food, warm layers, cameras still in their cases, but they stayed together. 9 sets of footprints marched in disciplined order down the slope toward the tree line, 500 meters away. Beneath a lone cedar at the forest's edge, they tried to build a fire. The 2 Yuris gathered branches with already numbing fingers. Flames rose for a short while, offering fragile hope. Some decided to return uphill for supplies. Igor, Zenaida, and Rustam turned back toward the tent, their tracks showing steady, determined steps. The others moved toward a nearby ravine, seeking shelter from the wind, huddling close, sharing what little body heat remained. Dawn arrived cold and colorless. The mountain kept its counsel. Weeks later, when the group failed to send their expected telegram, search parties formed. Fellow students, soldiers, Mansi hunters who knew the old ways. On February 26th, they found the tent still standing, half buried but intact, belongings scattered as though set down for just a moment. The footprints led away like the last chapter of an unfinished book. The first bodies were discovered near the cedar. Doroshenko and Krivonishchenko, curled peacefully, one with minor burns from leaning too close to the fire in the dark. Higher up the slope lay Igor, Zenaida, and Rustem, faces turned toward the tent they had almost reached. The final 4, Lyudmila, Semyon, Nikolai, and Alexander, were not found until May, when spring melt revealed them in the ravine. They had sheltered together like one family, some wearing the clothing of the others. A few had serious injuries from the terrain and the desperate conditions, yet there was no sign of external violence, no struggle with man or beast. The snow around them was pristine except for their own tracks. Faint radioactive traces were later noted on certain garments, a puzzle that still has no clear answer. The official conclusion spoke of a compelling natural force. Modern analysis points to a small slab avalanche triggered by the wind on that steep slope, not a roaring wall of death, but enough sudden movement in total darkness to send 9 experienced hikers running together for their lives. Hypothermia can create a cruel illusion of warmth. Confusion sets in quickly. They did what they had always done. They stayed united until the end. And so the mountain kept the rest. Why slash the tent instead of simply opening it? Why leave without boots? The questions linger like frost on glass. Some mysteries refuse to be solved completely, and perhaps that is their quiet gift. They remind us how small we are, how fierce our friendships can be, and how much of life remains wrapped in wonder. Decades have passed. The pass now bears Igor Dyatlov's name. The hikers' black and white photographs still circulate, images of young faces lit with purpose, the vast white world stretching behind them like an invitation. They went not for glory or conquest, but for the pure joy of movement, for the stories told around a flame, for the feeling of being fully alive beneath an indifferent sky. Tonight, as you lie here in the warmth of your own bed, picture those 9 friends one final time. Not as victims, but as bright embers against the snow, young, bonded, courageous. They met something vast and ancient, and they faced it together. Now they rest beneath the quiet pines and the cedar that once gave them brief shelter. Their footprints have long since vanished beneath fresh snow, but their story drifts on the wind like the gentlest of lullabies. The Ural Mountains still stand, patient and eternal. The stars wheel overhead exactly as they did that February night. And in the hush between wakefulness and sleep, you may catch the faintest echo of laughter or the soft hiss of skis on fresh powder. It is only the mountain breathing, reminding us that some endings are not tragedies, but quiet testaments to the human spirit. You are safe. The cold cannot reach you here. Whatever unknowns tomorrow holds, tonight you may rest.